But when you're talking about the moral issues, you have to understand a little bit about moral theory. One of the things I tried to do, I mean, I don't know whether it's been successful or not, although I get a good deal of feedback from it, is the website, abolitionistapproach.com. The primary purpose for the website was to present educational materials in an internet age where people aren't reading a lot of books, and to try to present the ideas. I mean, we have a section on the thing on videos, and I've got, theory of animal rights, animals as property, animal rights versus animal welfare, etc. And, you sit, you watch the things, and the idea was, well, yeah, if you write Introduction to Animal Rights, you get a lot more out of it than watching this 30-minute flash presentation. But, if you're not going to read the book, then what I want to do is get you to focus on the structure of the argument that I present in the book. So that's what I do in Theory of Animal Rights. In Animal Rights versus Animal Welfare, I explain the basic differences. I mean, if you're not going to read Rain Without Thunder, which I think is a book that I wrote the book to try to inform people about the distinction between animal rights and animal welfare. If you're not going to read the book, at least watch the flash presentation, which talks about the distinction between animal rights and animal welfare. Now, are you going to get everything out of that you're going to get out of the book? The answer is no. But I mean, if you're not going to read the book, or if you want a condensed version of what the argument is, look at the video, look at the flash presentation. Animals as property. Again, I wrote a whole book on that in 1995. God, it was a long time ago. But in 1995, I wrote Animals, Property, and the Law. And it's a very lengthy book. It's a book which presents the argument that because animals are property, because they have the economic status of chattel property, animal welfare reform is never really going to provide significant protection for their interests. Now, there's a condensed version called Animals as Property on the video page. It's a flash presentation. You sit, you watch it. You at least get the structure of the arguments. We have flyers that you can download for free. There are my flyers that other people have done. There are the blog essays, in which what I try to do is take ideas and present them in simple ways. So I'm sure there are other resources out there that, and indeed I link to a bunch of them on the site. But at least, learn some. You've got to learn some basics. In order to be a teacher, you have to be a student first. Think about that. In order to be a teacher, you've got to be a student first. Now, let me give you, those are the 5 principles. 1, default position. Everyone that you're talking with has a good heart, a real spark in there, a spark of moral spirit, and you're there to, you're there to get that going into a conflagration that is going to change their lives and move them in the direction of nonviolence in all aspects of their lives and get them to stop eating, wearing, and consuming non-human animals. Principle number 2, people are not stupid. That should be your default position. No one is incapable. I always tell my students, my law students, you want to know if you understand something, try to see if you can explain it to a reasonably intelligent, not a brilliant, but an average, a 15-year-old or a teenager of reasonable intelligence. If you can't, you don't understand the issue. If you can't explain proximate causation or the mental states required for culpability in criminal law, for criminal law liability, if you can't explain those things, those concepts, to a reasonably intelligent, we're not talking about a brilliant or highly talented young person. We're talking about, take a kid of average intelligence. If you can't explain those concepts, you don't understand them. Okay? And education. We should always be simple without being simplistic. We should always be simple without being simplistic. And there's no idea that you can, I don't care what it is. If you understand quantum physics, you can explain it to a kid. If you don't, you can't. If it's confused in your mind, you will not be a good teacher. And so assume people are not stupid. They can understand things. The burden's on you to make it clear. The burden is on you to be a good teacher. Burden is on you to be a good teacher. Don't get defensive with people. Respond, don't react. Respond, don't react. Principle 4, don't get frustrated. And always treat the question you get or always respond to the question you get as though it's the first time you've ever heard that question. Principle 5, learn some basics. Before you become a teacher, you have to be a student first. Let me give you just a couple of quick examples before I end this commentary, because I do have to get off to school. And that is, people always say, well, how do you start a conversation? And the answer is, there are as many different ways to start a conversation as there are different people in different contexts. One way I'm just going to give you a couple of examples before I end. In 2007, an American football player named Michael Vick was arrested for participation in a dog fighting ring. And he was imprisoned. He came out in 2009. He signed with, I believe, the Philadelphia Eagles. And there was a lot of controversy in 2007, and there was a lot of controversy in 2009 because everybody thought what Michael Vick did was really horrible, which it was. Dog fighting is absolutely terrible. I have found the Michael Vick hypothetical or example, not hypothetical because it happened, but I find the Michael Vick situation or example very useful in teaching, because I will give you an example of how I do this. When there was a lot of controversy about Michael Vick, and there still continues to be controversy about Michael Vick, but particularly when it was at its high point, I would, when I started a lecture on the subject, I would say, well, I'm sure that you all saw the coverage today about Michael Vick, and everybody would murmur, and I'd say, it's really horrible what he did, isn't it? And everybody would, they'd nod their heads. And I would say, okay, well, I need some explanation here. I mean, why is what he did bad? I mean, we all know what he did was bad, but why is what he did? I mean, what are the reasons why? What are the reasons? And, you'll get people saying, well, because he hurt those dogs, or because those dogs really suffered, or the dogs were... And I said, yeah, I understand all that. I said, but why is that bad? I mean, why? Yes, the dogs suffered, the dogs died, but why is that bad? And then eventually, after you ask the question enough times, people say, well, if you're going to make an animal suffer, there's got to be a good reason. If you're going to kill an animal, there's got to be a good reason. And you can't kill animals and make them suffer for entertainment purposes. That's monstrous. Okay, that is monstrous. Now let me ask you all, how many of you eat meat and other animal products? And then virtually every hand goes up. And I say, okay, I'm puzzled. Someone's got to explain to me, what's the difference between what Mike Vick did and what y'all are doing? Because what justification do you have for consuming animal products other than a version of entertainment? You like the taste. There's no necessity. Whether if there were some necessity, we would at least have an interesting discussion about whether the necessity would justify it. But there ain't no necessity. And you've just told me that you're all horrified by what he did, because what he did could not be justified under any framework of analysis, because there was no way in which it could be construed as necessary. And you watch people struggle with that. And it's as if like a large brick came down on them. And then you'll get responses. People say, well, but he really enjoyed it. I said, what difference does it make? You enjoy consuming animals. You pay somebody else to do it. You don't do it yourself. Most people don't do it themselves. They don't slaughter their own animals. So what? It's like saying in criminal law, what's the difference between, if I, with premeditation and deliberation, kill somebody, it's murder. If I pay somebody else to do it, it's also murder. The fact that I pay somebody to do it doesn't make it not murder. Doesn't make it less culpable. It's the same thing. Whether I do it myself or I pay somebody else to do it, dead body, I want a dead body, I get a dead body. It doesn't matter who does it. Somebody does it. I either do it directly or I cause somebody else to do it. And what you'll find is, another way of getting into this with people is, as I was expressing in terms of my conversation with a woman at Whole Foods yesterday, is to ask people, do you have a companion animal? Yeah, I have a dog, I have a cat. I mean, almost everybody you talk to, particularly in a society like ours, they will have had some significant relationship with a non-human at some point in their lives. If not now, at some point. And it's really significant. It's stuck with them.